So I'm getting this out a little later than I generally like to with new Doctor Who reviews, but sorry, I know I was supposed to be scared to go to sleep after the end of this thing, but I was beat. I went right to bed with no reservations. Sleep no more. Quick reminder, I don't do spoiler free anymore, although before I get into spoilers, I will say, not a great episode. Now, going into this thing right off the back, I was nervous because it's got the whole first person thing going on, which is, well, first of all, I hate first person in film, but this thing overcomes the inherent issues with first person camera perspective in movies, because in movies it's always just one jerk with a camera who just won't put it down. You're like, why are you filming that? Why is this going on? This, much better put together. This is, right from the beginning, we're told, look, I've assembled this existing footage to show you what has happened. This was the best I could do. Amongst other things, it allows us to jump perspectives. We're seeing it through this person's eyes. Now we're seeing it through that person's eyes. And nobody is physically carrying a camera. So it kills the major problems that I usually have with this kind of genre. That said, it's still very gimmicky. Now that's not inherently a problem. Doctor Who can be very gimmicky. Blink is incredibly gimmicky. Midnight's very gimmicky. That's not to say it always works, because Love and Monsters is pretty gimmicky too. The odd thing about this one is this episode doesn't work, but it's not because of the gimmick. The gimmick works fine, all things said and done. It doesn't really detract, and actually it made the presentation slightly more interesting. It didn't make me motion sick, which can be a problem for me with these sorts of things sometimes. And the aesthetic's kind of cool. It's very Aliens. There's sort of the opening segments of Aliens where it's the Marines going into the base, you know, before they find the hive and all that. And I think it's very intentional. I mean, the outfits they've got these guys in are sort of reminiscent of that, with the helmets and the rifles and just the whole vibe of the thing. So, I mean, I like that they're pulling that. I think it works pretty well. But just what this story actually is, I don't know what this thing is. I gotta be honest, mostly I'm just gonna rip on the monsters from here on out. Now, I feel a little bit bad doing it because I'm not sure if I entirely understand exactly what they were supposed to be. And regardless of whether I understand it fully or not, the explanations and the comparisons and the analogies given for what they are make them really laughable. Oh, that stuff that you clear out in the corner of your eye when you wake up, it's that! I'm like, really? So there's a fall down on concept right there. But beyond that, just the look of the things isn't great. I mean, the face, or sort of a lack of a face, and it's this big gaping thing, is okay, but you pull back and look at the whole thing, the sort of textural nature of it, it just looks like foam. And the way they move isn't terrific. There is one shot where it's sort of them coming through the flames, and the way that's lit and the way the shot is kind of angled, they actually look cool and creepy in that shot, but that's the only shot. The rest of the time I'm looking at them going, and that was before I even knew what they are. When the hand first came through and they closed the door on it, it's like, I'm looking at that hand going, that does not look scary to me. That looks dumb. There were just various moments sort of played like they were supposed to be twists or reveals, like that the guy who invented the Morpheus machine was still alive, and none of it ever felt like, oh, I didn't see that coming. It was like, okay, so that's what happened next. I don't know. It was just really hard for me to get invested in this one. And maybe it was just because so many very laughable concepts were brought in from the start. The thing is, though, there are moments that work really effectively. A moment that I loved was when the one guy was trying to get through the door and the computer made him sing and wouldn't let him through. That actually instantly made me I wish this was an AI controlling computer gone mad situation, because with him trying to negotiate with that door, and it had this tone in his voice that was like GLaDOS from the Portal games, and you couldn't quite tell if it was toying with him or if it was just doing what it was programmed to do. And I really loved that moment, and it immediately made me I wish this computer was the villain, because this moment is so much more tense and interesting and fun than pretty much the whole rest of the episode. But ultimately, I'm not entirely sure what it is that doesn't work. I mean, I know various components of this thing that doesn't work. I'm not entirely sure why it doesn't work overall, because Doctor Who can overcome a goofy looking monster. Doctor Who can overcome a goofy concept. I mean, the thing that sort of comes to mind was Mummy on the Orient Express, but I really liked that episode. But it's just something in this one about the combination of a goofy premise, a goofy look to the monster, a gimmick that doesn't hurt the thing but isn't really adding a ton, and a supporting cast that is fine but unremarkable. I think ultimately that's why I couldn't really grab onto this. There's a bunch of things that are either okay or not good, but there's no one element that I can grab on and go, oh, there's the saving grace. That's what brings it up and elevates it. Like, to compare it again to Mummy on the Orient Express, the supporting cast of that episode was wonderful, and they elevated what could have been a very goofy episode. This episode, unfortunately, doesn't have that saving grace to elevate it and prop up the weaker elements, and so it just ends up being a weaker episode. So I guess that about wraps it up for me. Have you seen Sleep No More? If you have, what were your thoughts about it? Drop something down in the comments and let's talk about it. Until next time, this council is adjourned. Oh man, I tell you, I'm really tired.